Everybody, we're back again to talk some NBA and more. We got a bevy of topics today. We've got talking about the MJ basically coming out saying that he can no longer stay silent. We're going to talk about our thoughts on what he had to say. We got the NBA rule change. We're just going to elaborate a little bit more into the so-called Hacka DeAndre, Hacka Shaq, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk about the Olympics briefly for 2016, how Team USA is doing. Amar'e Stoudemire announced his retirement. We're going to talk a little bit about his career and his retirement as well. Dion Waiters was the most recent big name free agent to sign. He signed with the Miami Heat for a 2-year deal. We'll get into that a little bit. Mo Harkless goes back to Portland. That gives them some added depth. We'll touch on that. Ty Lue ends up getting a $35 million extension with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And lastly, we'll talk Russell Westbrook and the Kevin Durant drama as some more behind-the-scenes info has come out. So, gentlemen, we're going to jump right into it. Everybody, I think, has had a chance to read the I Can No Longer Stay Silent speech by Michael Jordan. What did you guys think about it? What are your thoughts? Whoever wants to go ahead.
Well, I'll start off first, okay? Um, Michael Jordan, first of all, I'm from Chicago, and it's amazing to me that with all this, well, these young black, well, I ain't say young, well, black men in general are getting killed. I mean, not even causing it, not even been a threat, right? Mike didn't say anything. Cops get killed, now Mike wants to speak out. I have a problem with Michael Jordan in general. I think he's a great basketball player. But let just to put all that to the side for a minute. No basketball, serious talk. Michael Jordan to me has always been an absolute piece of shit. Okay, like I'm gonna be honest with you, Michael Jordan. When people are talking about talking about how his shoes, you know, and people were murdering people heavily in the 80s and 90s for and sticking people up for Michael Jordan gym shoes. And they asked Michael Jordan to speak on it. You know what Michael Jordan said? He says, "I make shoes for suburban whites, not poor blacks." Let me ask you guys a question. In all reality, I don't even remember too many. I don't know too many white people who are even going to spend $200 on a pair of gym shoes. Like, I'm not paying that much on those gym shoes. Like, but if I buy a pair of Jordans, they're probably a discount price. I'm probably not paying no more than 80, $90 for them. I'm not paying $200 for no gym shoes.
No, I have to be the one to say when I worked in high school, that's kind of where my money went, and I was the only white person at the foot action at Lenox Mall. So,
Okay,
I luckily
so
did not get mugged from my Jordans, but I did see people kind of get into some back and forth about it, and some shop owners, whether it's Nike Town or whatever, basically as soon as they gave out their vouchers for who was there early, they closed one side of the store because worried about theft and stuff like that. So I can definitely see your point there. But nowadays in the real world, when I actually have bills and have to pay for shit, fuck no, I'm not paying no $200 for no Jordans.
you know, and I guess my main problem, like I said, with Michael Jordan is that when I'm totally against police brutality because I believe that if we didn't have police officers keeping order, I'm talking about good cops keeping order, the world would probably be in a rut. People would be doing all type of crazy stuff. So we need the police. I'm not against the police at all. I'm just against cops who use their badge in the wrong manner. Like you see a guy's not resisting arrest, you shoot him anyway. That's kind of wrong. Like you shooting a guy that's not a threat. I can see if a guy had a weapon and he's aiming it at you, or he's kind of unstable. He's acting like he might shoot you. Then I understand you might have to shoot first to save your own life and save your partner's life or anybody any civilians like this in the area. I understand that's understandable. But we've got video footage of innocent black people being shot just for grabbing IDs and guys who are like in handcuffs and they get shot. That's wrong.
And laying on the ground with their hands up.
Laying on the ground with their hands up and you still get shot. Like really, like honestly, that's terrible. Now, but I understand why Mike kind of spoke out about that. But it kind of angers me that Mike donated money, right? I understand donating to, police research or whatever, into the communities. I get that. But I question this move. Why would he donate money to the NAACP? I'm telling you something. And this is what I tell people. Do your research. The NAACP is not the NAACP when Martin Luther King was alive. It's not. It's strictly a business now. Back then, they fought for rights. Now they fight for money. Did you guys know during the Donald Sterling era, during Donald Sterling when he was over the Clippers, do you not know that they said Donald Sterling was nominated like Man of the Year by the NAACP?
Yep.
Come
Multiple times.
Multiple times. And how he donated money to the NAACP. Like, you guys don't question, like, the NAACP's motive at this point. Like, really? Like, I can't even trust you when you blatantly make a guy who's a blatant racist your Man of the Year. That's a problem. And Mike donates to that. I even look at Mike's quotes. Mike says at one time he was a racist. I don't believe that for one bit. I never believed that.
He's cheap as fuck, I know that.
Yeah. Michael Jordan. Have you guys ever seen the video where Michael Jordan and Chameleonaire asked Michael Jordan for his autograph and don't ask him for take a picture? And Michael Jordan told him, I don't take no picture with no niggas. That's what he said.
Wow.
Like,
no, I didn't see that.
Really, Mike? A picture? And how Mike outbidded him for a jersey. And then he said, man, why did you have to bid for the jersey? It's your own jersey. I want the jersey. He says, look, next time, just sit down and shut up. You can't outbid me. Mike bought his own jersey just to keep him from buying the jersey.
He's also the one that stepped over a homeless person. It was him and Charles Barkley stepped over a homeless person, told him to get a fucking job.
Come on, man.
Come on now.
Like, I guess maybe my heart is a little different, man. I'm just kind of like, if it's a homeless person and I see I didn't say you have to give him money, but if you ask him for food, don't get him something to eat.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
What's wrong with a sandwich? It's not hurting you. You and Charles Barkley are like millionaires. A cheeseburger or fries is not going to kill you buying somebody that.
Well, for Charles Barkley to give up that cheeseburger and fries, that'd take a lot. So
it might kill the person. It might kill the person who's buying it for. If they're homeless, last thing they need is some fast food. Give them some vegetables.
Charles Barkley will fight you for some McDonald's. So
yeah, so I mean, Michael Jordan, it's kind of too late for him. Honestly, I give more credit to Carmelo Anthony right now. I like the fact that he spoke in a timely manner, made good speeches and said nice things on Twitter about how people we need to come together. Police need to come together with the communities and learn more about the people in the neighborhood. Just learn tactics on how to deal with people. If a person's not causing a threat, there's no need to shoot somebody who's not resisting arrest or a person who's just laying on the ground. And at the same token too, I want to get this point across too. We want the police to respect us, but I'm saying this message to black people in general. Respect the police and respect the authorities. If they ask you to show your driver's license, what's the problem? I mean, I got pulled over. I might not like it, but if they ask me for my driver's license and I'm clean and legit, really, what's the problem? Hand the license over. If they ask you, let me search the vehicle, you have nothing to hide, let them check it. Right. I mean, it does seem like kind of invasion, kind of like you're being invaded, but I mean, you got to think about how many people on a daily basis. Give an example. You got 4 black guys in the car. You might see smoke in the car. Music is loud, and you pull them over. How many times has that police officer been right about marijuana and drug paraphernalia being in the car? He's probably right.
Right.
Now,
there's always two sides to everything.
It is, but I'm just saying, if you just really look at the situation, they might be right most of the time with their judgment calls. Pulling certain people over. A guy might have a weapon in the car. They might actually be right about that. So that's probably the reason why they're searching.
Still profiling though.
Because it is, but see, I'm the type of person.
The danger in that though is that because it seems probable or more likely, you will target somebody who isn't guilty of those offenses, or who doesn't have drug paraphernalia, or who doesn't have any felonies, or I mean,
that's true. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but see, I'm just the type of person. I look at it on the bright side like this, right? Say for instance, they pull somebody over, and they catch a guy who has a gun. Then they pull me over. They pull me over, and I might be a guy who might not have a gun, or they might actually miss a guy who actually has a gun, and this guy goes out there and hurts somebody else later. They could have possibly saved somebody. I mean, what's the problem with the search though? I understand, like, if you don't have anything in your car, there's no reason for you to even be paranoid about even being questioned about it. I mean, you should be questioned. I mean, you should have a problem with it. I wouldn't. I mean, I just have a problem when you, like, I pulled over at a Family Dollar one day, right? I made a right turn. When the guy pulled me over, as soon as I made a right turn, the cop pulled me over. I said, sir, why did you? I said, what's the reason for the pullover? He says, well, I pulled you over because you look kind of suspicious coming out of the lot. I said, huh? I said, suspicious how? He says, you know what I mean? I don't know. I just decided to pull you over. You just looked a little suspicious. I said, suspicious how, sir? I said, sir, I drive a Honda Accord. I said, I drive with my hands at 10 and 2. I still drive like I'm in driver's ed. And I said, it's not because I saw you there. It's just how I drive. I said, what could be the reason for that? So he asked me to give my driver's license, give him my insurance. He said, can I check the trunk? I said, go right ahead. He checked the trunk. There was nothing was there. He saw my ID and registration straight. He let me go. It was an inconvenience because, like, you did kind of profile me a little bit, but you searched me, found I had nothing on me. I was clean. You let me go. Took less than 2 minutes. It was over. Not a problem.
I gotta disagree. I've had some horror stories about my runs with the police that I'm not gonna disclose via this program, but I did have an instance when the police they asked to look in my trunk. I allowed them to, but that's not something that I'm going to do again. Reason being is you don't know who you're dealing with. They could have planted something on me. I mean, at the time, I felt like the safe thing for me to say was, sure, check it, because like you said, I didn't have anything to hide. But you have to question the motive. Why do you need to search my trunk? If everything is if my registration, my vehicle registration is intact, it's current, why do you feel the need to do that? When they did the show on Alton Sterling with Matt and Pete and Mike and Q on there, I chose not to do it because I think that you must separate the emotion from the facts and from what's really at hand before you speak. And like my mother said it best, she was like, "Be concerned, but do not be consumed." And once she said that, it was so liberating because I see a lot of people that are concerned. When things initially happen, people get concerned and then they get consumed. And then now I see the difference. Now that the smoke has cleared a little bit, I see people that are concerned and I see people that are consumed. But you have to question yourself. The question still is why. And I was driving with Matt one day. Police officer pulls us over. For every your tag is really because it was the way I dressed, how I was dressed at the time, and I was with Matt, black guy riding, I was riding shotgun with him, and we were in the neighborhood that is
you must have kidnapped me.
Urban, predominantly.
And you must have kidnapped me.
Right, and made him drive, but I've got the gun to his hip, drive Matt, and I know his name, and the thing was. Again, why? We asked, oh, well, your sticker, oh, well, y'all look a little, where y'all going? Why are these questions necessary? I know how the law works because I know people that are in law enforcement, but why are these questions necessary? This is a free country. This is America. Why must I tell you where I'm going? You ask questions that don't pertain to the the reason why you're pulling me over, and I'm pretty compliant with the police, but I've had some bad occurrences with them that I'm not going to bring up because it will take me to that place of anger, you know what I mean? And I have never been so humiliated in my life all because all for nothing. You know, and
Well,
it was definitely profiling.
I don't.
But
Oh,
go
good.
ahead.
No,
It,
you got to keep going.
yeah, and you know, I was being racially profiled, and the incident that I'm not going to elaborate on, it happened just days before the news broke about Trayvon Martin, and I feel like had it not been such a spectacle, such a show, then and there hadn't been so many witnesses there, when I found out what happened to that kid, and when I see what's happening to others, I was like, that could have been me.
Yeah, but with Trayvon Martin, that was not. That was basically, in my opinion, a guy that basically wanted to take his authority of what he thought he should be as, a basically whatever neighborhood watch, whatever the fuck he considered himself, and
He gave himself that title.
take it, take that to the extreme. Now,
Right.
he wasn't an actual officer or whatever, so to
But
me,
it's the same mentality, though. That's why I bring it up, because even though I know George Zimmerman is not an officer, but it's the same mentality. It's like his perception was like, what is he doing here? He does not belong here. And I think that when you have that, man, you cannot. One thing I've learned, and because I've said it on here before, my dad is foreign, my mom is American, and growing up, my house, so many different people came into my house, white, Indian, all people from all different types of Asia, Latinos were in my home, and at a young age, my parents explained. Not only did they explain to me, because I had questions, they explained to me their culture, their customs, and because of that, I don't dehumanize people. They instilled that in me at an early age, to look at people as equals and accept their differences. And if you see my friends now, even in Los Angeles, I had like a dinner for my birthday, maybe 3 months ago now, and my friend was saying, dude, all you were missing was a Samoan. And it didn't occur to me, in my mind, within myself, it didn't occur to me like, wow, I've got people of all different nationalities here. It wasn't like even that. It was just that I looked at them as like, these are the people who are my friends and have become, I'm a foreigner here. You know what I mean? I'm the foreigner. But these are the people that have welcomed me and embraced me and who have become my core group of people and become my friends. So I don't dehumanize them. And, I've worked jobs. I was an educator at one point, and I had kids of all different backgrounds, but I could not teach them according to like how I thought they would perceive it, because maybe there was a cultural barrier between me and them. I had to treat every kid, on the same. I had to treat them all, as equals, and I had to trust that I didn't look at them as inferior because of what their background was. Yes, there was language barriers with some of them, but I gave everybody a clean slate, an equal playing ground, and I didn't look at them as this or as that. The question is, and it all goes back to, you cannot dehumanize somebody or look at them as less than you, because once you do that, then it requires nothing for you to take their life, because you've already dehumanized them. And,
there's people that are product of their environment. Like, I think, not knowing this before we met each other, Matt and I grew up, similar backgrounds, being, in a more urban area, things like that. Like, I'll say it all day long. Like, if I grew up in a predominantly rich white area, I might not have the same personality. But because I didn't, I can look at all different nationalities and look at different outcomes and see different perspectives and say, okay, I can kind of sense what this person's going through because I see it on a more regular basis. Same with the police officer. If they're, an inbred white country, middle of nowhere white cop, they're going to see somebody black and say, we don't know this person, we're not used to this person. Oh shit, let us react in a different way. If they're a white cop that's in, middle of Detroit, they're probably going to be, more able to shoot the shit and let a lot of shit go by quicker. It's because you get basically you're a product of your environment is what I'm trying to get to.
But
Well,
I'm gonna answer to that though too. I understand your question why, and the why really comes from, especially when police pull you over, it's racial profiling, it's racism.
Right.
But you also got to be smart when dealing with this situation too, because you got to think about it this way: if you come off as being aggressive, he's probably really going to get aggressive, and that's the game you want you to play. So he have some reason to
Fuck you up.
shoot you,
Exactly.
fuck you up. You know, so you almost have to play kind of submissive, but I don't call it submissive. I call it playing.
It's about submission. That's what it's about, because
It is.
what I think that is people have these. They have a lot of people in America, just in general, they have an inferiority complex disguised as a superiority complex. And a lot of these people, like I read somewhere, somebody was saying that their dad was a cop, and most people find that profession when there's nothing else to do. And you think about it, you have people that have their own insecurities, they're bringing into the profession, they've been bullied, they've been ridiculed, and now it's just like a person that wins the lottery. Now it's payback time now. And now and the only way, when you have self-esteem issues, then and you get in that profession, that's the way that you empower. That's the way that people with low self-esteem empower themselves. You know what I mean? By I guess picking on these people and causing other people to suffer because they feel like they've been victims to some sort of abuse or brutality, whether it was verbal or whether it was physical. And I think that is what they want is submission. But their job is to protect and to serve. And we have to talk about what it means to be a servant. That means that if I call you, I need assistance, you come and you serve me. You understand? And I think that you say why, and you say, all right, don't come up as aggressive, and you know, and it's about submission, and you play the role, you play the game. But are they Gestapo or are they police? That's what we must. That's what we must look at. The badge is not to be. The badge is given as a. And you think about a badge. You know, it's supposed to be a symbol of like honor. That means you've endured something. You've gone to an academy. You've learned how to shoot. You've learned. There's certain code of conduct, and you must endure something to even don that badge. You know, and that's what it. And you know, somebody said also, like in the UK, police officers don't have guns. I look at that like, wow. You know, in America, I don't know if that would necessarily work, but I think that you know, the responsibility should be to de-escalate and diffuse situations rather than escalate them because you want to go home. And in this field, you will deal with people who become irate. It's no different than the guy who works at the, I don't know what y'all got, the Piggly Wiggly, Kroger's or whatever, or 7-Eleven, who's dealing with the customer that comes in and he becomes irate. And what do? Because the customer's always right, you have to diffuse that situation and you have to humble yourself and you have to bite the bullet. With the badge should come humility. And I always say this, power in the wrong hands is always destruction. Even in the professional world, I like to see people get promoted who are deserving and not people who are not. I've seen it over and over and over again. A person who was a jerk, who's an idiot, who's an imbecile before he got that position, and I see what happens when people like that get into power and they bring hell to everybody else. You know what I mean? And you want to keep things peaceful because I have a close friend now. He's in the Sheriff's Academy currently, right now, and after speaking with him and hearing his perspective on things, on like Alton Sterling and different things, and Philando, it was interesting to hear what he would do. And he's a black male, and after talking to him, it kind of changed how I saw certain things because there is now with the complex they have, there's also a fear that comes with that every day, and you want to make it home. I spoke to a LAPD that I met through a friend. We were talking, older white guy, and I really, really like his perspective on things because, you know, people might think that he feels differently about it. You might see him and talk to him and expect Mark Furman, but he's a polar opposite. Like I was talking to him, and he said when he first got on the force, he was stationed in Watts, and he said in the Nickerson Garden projects. That is one of the, you know, that is one of the worst places to live in the U.S. It was then when he started, maybe I think he said 30 years ago, and it still is one of the worst places you can live in the U.S. And he said after that, he worked in the Jordan Downs, which is also in Watts, which is where Menace to Society was filmed. But he said that he served in Watts for maybe like the first 10 years of his employment as a LAPD, and he said it was one of the best experiences. He said if he could go back, he would. He would take that over anywhere else he's patrolled. He said because he said the people there. He said even though it was the projects and it was the ghetto, he said they were warm and they were cool, and they began to know him, and they would, they would cool it when they would see him. He said the people there were he said some of the best people he's met. And at the BET Awards, it's contrary to popular belief, black people, we don't really watch BET. Maybe when the awards come on. But I watched it this year. Other than that, I don't really watch that channel. But I watched it this year, and Jesse Williams from Grey's Anatomy made a speech, and it had America just had all their panties up in a bunch. But he spoke on some of these things, and he's biracial. But not only is he biracial, his appearances, his features are still very Euro, very Caucasian. I mean, he's a black man with blue eyes. And he said something after he got the backlash for that speech by a lot of people. And he said, one of the things he said was, he was like, me growing up biracial and being very fair-skinned and having blue eyes, he said, I've been around white people and I hear how they talk about blacks. I've been around blacks and I hear they talk about how they talk about whites. So I know what I'm talking about. And he said the main problem is people are not exposed to certain groups of people, and that's why they have these predisposed, like these preconceived, I should say, ideas of how those people are. And it was like, we need to get more exposed with each other and be around different groups of people so we can understand them. I don't look down on Asians because I grew up, my sister's best friend, my big sister, her best friend was Filipino. My piano teacher right now he was at my house. He was here yesterday. He's Filipino. So I don't have any, and I'm used to that. I'm used to his customs. I know why his family, why they do certain things, why they eat certain foods, and I don't have any issues with white people because, believe it or not, my granddad on my mom's side was half and half. He was half black, half white. My mom's grandmother was a full-blooded white woman. So I don't have issues with white people. I wouldn't be here if not. I don't have issues with the Latinos or any of them because I've been exposed to these different groups of people. And I think that when you do that, you won't dehumanize them. You won't look at them as less than, and you will treat them with the same respect and give them the same opportunity that you give people who look like you and who live where you live, And I think that when we get back down to law enforcement, there needs to be greater responsibility put on them for the lives that are lost here, because I think that you should always go into that situation to de-escalate, and you don't have to necessarily shoot to kill. Where's the barometer? How do we measure what is excessive and what isn't? I think that law enforcement, they should have that, first of all, that moral compass, and they should be judged way more critically and harshly, for the lives that are lost at their hands, because at the end of the day, it is to protect and to serve. You can shoot somebody in their leg.
But see, you got to look at it too now. Hold on. The original police force, when they say to serve and protect, the original, go look it up. To serve and protect, they were not talking about serve and protect people. It was to serve and protect business. It was never really people at all. It's always been business. But I do understand what you mean. Again, it just comes to, it's almost like you have to, as a civilian, you just kind of look at it. You do want police to handle situations better, But just in case that they never change that, because obviously they're letting all these cops off the hook. It don't look like they're gonna be changing no time soon. You know,
Right.
so we got to do a better job of not getting hot-headed right away and be a little more level-headed and stay calm. Because you got to look at it. If you play aggressive, it's almost like you play into the hands of the aggressor, like a pit bull. Pit bull's ready to attack, right? If you get aggressive, he's gonna turn it up a notch. But if you remain calm, he'll probably play aggressive for a minute, but eventually he'll probably back off because he sees you as no threat. He sees you not trying to challenge him and turn around and walk away. I was walking home one day, and because my car was in the shop one time, and I was walking home in the cold, and the guy on the street honked at me and says, "Hey, get in the back of my car." I said, "No." I looked at him like, "What are you talking about?" Bro, I looked on the right of me and saw a blue pit bull walking right alongside me. Now, if I would have ran, he would have got me. I know he would have. But the fact that I kept calm and just walked the straight line and walked to the bus stop, he ran off into the woods somewhere. He left me. So the point I'm trying to make is that we know these cops. We know a lot of these cops' personalities and know what they might be up to. We know their profiling, but sometimes we just got to remain calm just for our own sake to be safe. You know, because like I said, right now these cops are getting off the hook, so they're prone to do it again because they think there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. So you have to play it safe. And I kind of live by it's a scripture my mom always told me. She says, "A soft answer turns away wrath." Sometimes when you soft spoken, you're calm, they might actually turn away from you and say, you know, he's not falling into the trap. So I'm gonna let him go.
You know, my mother told me the same thing, but my question now is, how much more calm can you be, or how more subtle can you be, or relaxed can you be than on the ground with your hands up, and you're still getting shot.
It's all over the country, though.
I see a lot of things being said online. Like, for an example, for one, I see this being said. You know, people are attacking the Black Lives Matter movement. Okay, and that's something that I won't get too detailed on because I don't even think that it should be fought as hard as it should, like, you know, because people aren't really realizing it. But people are saying that, well, we want justice for these people's lives. We want justice, and, you know, and people were talking about like boycotting this, boycotting that, and my mom was like, "How is boycotting, you know, Coca-Cola gonna stop?" You know what I mean? And she really and it makes so much. I'm like, "Ma, you know what? It makes so much sense." She was like, "These are not the people that have committed this, you know, to you." And I was like, "You got a point there." But I will also say this too, and what really has to be realized. We talk about the Black lives that matter. Okay, that's wonderful. Or we obviously, you know, we know that. Okay, but then my thing is, okay, people are screaming for justice, justice, justice. I'm screaming for my plea is like, okay, we need equality too, you know, and we need it's bigger than just, yeah, their lives matter. They need justice for those lives. But I mean, I'm looking at it. There's a race problem in America, and I'm looking at it on a deeper level. Like, if you commit rape, you should not get 6 months in prison, with the possibility of it being reduced to 3 months for good behavior. But any other minority is going to suffer maybe 13 years for that same offense, you know, by that same judge. And that right there alone, that's what it goes. That's what you know, when I said earlier about dehumanizing people and look at them as less than. The same offense, you know, for a black or Hispanic male will get you the maximum time by that judge, but this guy gets off with 6 months, and they don't go and grave dig and find out everything he did. They put his swimming stats on. It's bigger than that. You know what I mean? It's it's bigger than a Black Lives Matter movement. You know, it's bigger than all of that. We have to see each other on the same playing field, and I think that there must be equality within the judicial system.
Even looking at the presidential, look at the presidential race right now. There's not going to be equality either way you go. Either side that you go, if you're a Democrat or Republican, it's not going to be equal, because I don't give a fuck what Hillary wants to come out and say now. She was all against, you know, poverty-stricken, you know, basically more or less minorities, and we all know where Donald Trump stands. So now you're going to turn because you think you're going to get votes if you're Hillary. Oh, I'm all for the black community and we need to do this. Rewind the tapes back 7 years ago. Let's get to your, you know, how you basically don't care that people are oppressed and you know, don't really want to help out with jobs and all that stuff. Now all of a sudden you get put in the limelight, you know, and you want to change your tune. You know, either way it goes, it's going to be a long road from it. And we've all said it. Q said it best. You know, vote locally, and that's where the change is going to start. But until people get the mentality that it can't be blue lives matter, it can't be black lives matter. It needs to be every single life matters in every situation. Don't be quick to judgment. Don't be quick to pull the trigger, whether it's cops in a you know, scuffle with someone, or you know, it's black on black or white on black or whatever the case may be. Like, people are too quick to escalate situations nowadays. Where the fuck is talking something out and saying, all right, I had a disagreement, you know, fuck you, fuck this, whatever, and you walk away and you end up and you can come back and talk about it later. That shit don't exist. Now you get one in your ass before you even get 2 words out of your mouth.
Exactly.
And, you know, that's the problem with America. And if you look at other countries, that's what's happening to you. You have all these radical, you know, groups that sit there and bomb shit and everything else. And, you know, we can talk for hours and hours and hours, but at the end of the day, you know, Byron, it's like you said, you know, things need to, you know, be on an even playing field. And I don't think that's going to happen in this next presidential regime, no matter which side it is. And we can go on, you know, for hours on that, but I do want to, you know, jump on other topics, and we can talk more.
Let
you know,
me speak on the Michael Jordan thing, though, because that's how we got on this. But you know,
Right.
Michael Jordan.
Right.
I was gonna segue back there, but I just had to like speak on that. You know, as far as Michael Jordan here, you know, I've never met him personally, but I do have people in my life. Somebody I was with recently that is related, and that, you know, and so out of respect for them, I don't like to publicly like speak on him. But what I will say is this, and if y'all want to talk off the record, we can talk off the record. But what I will say is this, you know, Mike and I spoke about this. You know, it's like a damn if you do, damn if you don't type of thing. I mean, when people say, oh, it's too late for this, and you know, it's too late, it's too late for that. I think that with Michael Jordan, maybe he is charitable, and we don't know, and he doesn't. It's not publicized. Maybe he is. Given to the end of when I found out who he gave to, I was right with you, Gonzo. As far as like, I wish maybe a different organization other than NAACP. You know what I mean? That was my preference. You know, but $2 million is still $2 million, and I think that sometimes it's just you know, it's never enough when you're in that position. But I will say this, I am grateful that LeBron James gave all that money to the community, and he gave what, $41 million
For education.
and I think that that's where it starts, because when we invest, and you know, we grew up, I think probably everybody in this panel grew up idolizing the man because of what he brought. Michael Jordan speaking on, because of what he brought to the game. And,
Not me. I hate Michael Jordan.
well, okay,
Hate it.
but as far as like, I just like I was saying about LeBron James, I said that's where I think it really begins, is what he did. He not only that, he's reduced the cost of his shoes, not by a whole lot, but it's still it's still business. And
It needs to be all about those Hakeem Olajuwon Spalding $25 shoes. And then you can come talk to me about doing something for the kids.
I'm from Houston, and I wouldn't wear those shoes. But
It doesn't matter. Hey, it doesn't matter if you're for the kids and education, and you want to do all this shit. That's great that you gave $41 million. But the average American is going to look at LeBron's shoes. Those kids are going to want it. They're going to pay $150 for them. You make all this money. You can reduce down some of your stuff. Now, I respect LeBron for the fact that he does give the education, but I'm not going to sit there and say, oh yeah, his shoes. Any basketball player, whether it's KD, anything. I'm sorry, if your shoes are over $50, these kids, and you got struggling parents that can't afford. If they have multiple kids, how in the hell are you going to afford that for them?
Right. And I mean, getting, and that's where I'm going to. But like I was saying about Jesse Williams, and he was saying about being exposed and stuff. The fact that LeBron sent he invested in education, and now they're going to higher education and universities. They're going to be exposed around different people. They're going to have different opportunities. I kind of wish that more players, and even maybe if that money would have gone to, instead of NAACP, going into fund kids, because I think when we educate ourselves and we get knowledge of who we are and where we are, and we come to the realization of where we are, that's when we can go and we can make a change. I've mentored kids for a long time now, and not all of them come back and say thank you. But even a kid who I mentored here in Los Angeles, he came back and he tracked me down and he found me and he thanked me and he wanted to let me know that he was doing well. And I think that we can talk about things on a global scale, but we cannot negate the community and the mouth to mouth. And I think Carmelo is speaking out, Chris Paul spoke out, Dwayne Wade spoke out. That's wonderful. I think it's beautiful. But I think that we, obviously, like you said, you don't trust the government to do it, to bring about change. And it goes back to this too, being the change that you want to see and educating others. All the kids that come to me, and even the young adults, I give it to them raw, I give it to them uncut, and I tell them my story, where I came from, the education that I got, from one of the best. The school was ranked top 100 in the U.S. Around the time that I enrolled into that school, and where I came from, and I'm still not where I want to be, but where I am now. I'm not broke, and I'm not, I haven't been to, I'm not strung out on drugs or anything, and it still goes back to that. And we have to invest into, educating our kids and educating the youth. And that's why I bring up LeBron James, because we can go back and forth on the Jordan argument. I like to wear his products. I'm not buying every release. It is pretty expensive. The same can be said about iPhones. I mean, I think that it's people's greed, their desire to have certain things. But I don't see people saying that, well, Steve Jobs should make the iPhone affordable because every kid wants one, every kid would have one, and he's not doing this, that, and the third for the community. Yeah, Michael Jordan is a minority, obviously, and that's why the expectation is on him to reduce the price and let's reduce the price of that. He has some control, but you would have to talk to people even higher than them. It's still business. It is still, any way you slice it, it's business. So I say it's like, I don't know him personally. It's a damn if you do, damn if you don't. I kind of wish he would have been more vocal earlier on about just various things. But again, I have to commend those players that I see investing back into the community. And one of the best ways you can do that is education. And if I were in that position, I would invest in the education of others, because the kids that I've worked with, the reason why a lot of them get into bad situations is because of lack of opportunity. And how do we create opportunities? You know, when we educate ourselves, when we find our niche and we find our trade and we stick with that and we go with that and we empower one another.
Well, Matt, you've been sitting there a while. You hadn't got a chance to talk, man. So
I wasn't gonna say much on this, but the last 3 days I've been listening to Sirius XM NBA radio, and Brendan Haywood's been on there, Rick McCorn,
yeah,
and and then of course the host, Joe Myers is on for like 3
Justin
hours.
Termini, and then what's the New York guy?
I can't think of all their names because I just started listening. Joe Myers is the only one I can think of.
Joe Myers comes on at 9 o'clock your time.
Yeah, 9 to 12.
Yeah.
And I noticed all the players and the hosts, they're all with Michael. Hey, it's a good thing that he did it. And they always have the callers that call in, and the callers they all are mad at Michael. He's a fraud. He's this, he's that. So it's crazy the dynamic when you see the fans hate it. The commentators, the current, the former players, they, good for MJ, is what I'm noticing. And I really don't know where I stand on it. He did something, so there's always that.
Right. Mike, thanks.
People will listen.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for joining us, man. I know you jumped on a little late. We were talking about, we got kind of on the subject of the MJ speech, and I know you're the one that kind of hit us with the topics this week to kind of get the show going. So what's your thoughts on MJ's speech and kind of where do you stand with it?
The MJ donation is very multifaceted. It's not just, you can't just look at it at one angle. On the one hand, we do have the famous quote that that we always attribute to him. Republicans buy sneakers to, something that may or may not have been said in private. It's never something that we saw in an interview or something where we could say, here's the clip. But
right.
That's always been the MO against MJ, and that even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar coming out and saying, Michael Jordan chose commerce over consciousness. And to many degrees, yes. You can make that argument because it's like if you don't say anything, we don't know which way you stand. We can assume things. We can continue to come up with our own ideas and continue to gloss over rumors that we've heard. But until you actually say something, we have nothing to really pinpoint. And I think this really hit home for him in a different way. I think having somebody like Melo and CP3 especially, two athletes that represent his brand for the current generation, get on stage at the SPs next to Dwayne Wade and LeBron, two other athletes that a lot of people look up to now. I think it was a wake-up call. I think it was a wake-up call for him. Maybe he felt a certain way for some time and been quiet. Maybe he sat back and I don't know what to say. If I say something this way, then if I do, then if I don't. And whether he's just not waking up or he's felt this way for a long time and been quiet, now it's right on time because it's gotten to the point where it is something that everyone is talking about and it needs to be discussed. It's furthering the discussion. Furthermore, the biggest thing that's interesting to me about it is, on the one hand, he's given to the NAACP Defense Fund, which on the surface, everyone feels like that's safe. But on the other hand, what's the alternative? Black Lives Matter is a very important movement, but it has been very maligned in the media. A lot of people find it very divisive in the name, but also the way that the media has been treating it. A lot of the things that have happened in these cities have been attributed to the Black Lives Matter movement, such as like the riots in Baltimore and the shooting of police officers in Dallas, which is unfair. But that's how it's been branded in the media. That's the flip side of it. And so I understand why he would give $1 million to the NAACP Defense Fund, because the Defense Fund goes out and it actually fights for justice. It actually does things for people of color on a larger scale. Not to mention it has a budget of $14 million every year, so he gives them another $1 million. But then the other one that a lot of people don't really understand, and I had to do some reading up on it, is the Institute for Community Police Relations. That's the other group. And that group is a group that has an annual budget of $25 million, but their sole purpose is to decrease situations like this and increase police officers working with the minority and communities of color. Because until we as Americans embrace this fact that we see police in different ways, a lot of us see police as, something goes wrong, I'm going to call the police. The police have my back. If ever I need a police officer, they're there to serve. They're always on my side. But many of us in this country, particularly people of color and poor individuals, they don't see the police like that. And so we have to work on bridging the gap, because when you have police within the community walking the beat, and I remember in one of our previous conversations, Pete talked about how he had a relative who walked the beat and had many people come up to his funeral and speak on his behalf because of the type of police officer he was, as far as he was connected to the community. He knew people by first names. We don't have a lot of that. And I've even had a close friend that works for a police department here in Houston break it down to me that a lot of times the police force on the street is disproportionately placed in areas of higher income. So, for example, let's say there's 15 police officers at any given time on the streets. They will put 11 or 12 of those police officers in the wealthier, higher income areas, and they'll put 3 or 4 officers in the high traffic or, the areas that are high crime or high situations like that. So you get this disparity. And then the only time that you have police officers coming into this community, they're coming to respond to something that's happened. They're not there regularly meeting, walking the beat or driving around the neighborhood and interacting with the community. Now, that's no excuse for just coming in with guns drawn, don't get me wrong. But when you visit a community and you get to know a community as people and you see them as human, it makes it harder to pull the trigger. It makes it harder to see people as threats and as unworthy. We should all be seen as worthy, but unfortunately in this justice system in America, it's not. Byron touched on it earlier. You have a swimmer at Stanford who is convicted of rape. Not alleged, not suspected. He is convicted of rape of a girl unconscious, and the only way he was caught was by 2 good Samaritans passing by, seeing this man perpetrate the act behind a dumpster. And the judge happened to be an alumni of that same prestigious university, Stanford, and gives this guy 6 months with good behavior, and then takes 3 months off of that, saying that he's not a threat to society. And yet that same judge had a similar case, and he gave the person, who I believe was Hispanic, the minimum which was recommended by the DA, which was, I believe, was 6 to 7 years. That is a systematic problem that we have to address. We have to address that the justice system is not fair for people of color and non-people of color. Above anything, that's a rape. As men, and this needs to be said because not enough men are saying this, we need to stop looking at rape as a woman's problem, as, what did she do to get raped? What was she wearing? What was she doing? And we have to look at, why did this man perpetrate this crime against this woman? Why are we teaching girls and women not to get raped, how to walk in groups and call me when you get home, when we aren't teaching young men that, hey, if she doesn't give you consent, you cannot have sex with her. You can't initiate. It doesn't matter how many drinks she had. Doesn't matter if she was inebriated or she winked at you or was flirting with you. You don't have consent to do that. In the same way, if we looked at police shootings the same way we looked at rape, I think more people would be on board. I think more people would understand that, okay, there is this disparity. So back to MJ, wrapping it up, he put his money where his mouth is. He may not have given it to who we all ideally would have liked him to give it to, though he didn't say what we would have liked him to say. He did something. And the last time I checked, that's $2 million more than anyone I know has ever contributed to a solution. That $2 million isn't going to solve it overnight. It's not just going to turn the key and then, hey, racism is gone, justice system is equal, we're not getting profiled anymore, and people aren't getting shot. But someone of his profile doing something like that, following Melo's lead, following LeBron and Wade, it only inspires more people to follow suit. And instead of picking him apart for what he's doing now versus what he's done then, we really need to pay attention to what's really going on. We really need to use this momentum, because there's athletes, not just African American, that we want to speak up. I want white athletes to speak up. I mean, look at the WNBA. All of the WNBA has been united as far as the players. They've come out and they've worn T-shirts in solidarity for, Fernando Castillo, for the Dallas police and so on, and they got fined. And because of the social outrage, the WNBA rescinded those. But the climate is set to where people of a platform are speaking out. Pete has been kind enough to share his platform with us so we can speak out on this podcast. But I'm glad to see more higher profile individuals speaking out, because it's only going to create a greater climate for change. It's only going to continue the discussion. And my last point is, when you look at the passing of Muhammad Ali this summer, I don't think that's an accident that we're having a lot of high profile athletes come out and speak. I think a lot of athletes, when they relive Ali's life and they tell his story, and a lot of people understand the climate to which Ali was in the 60s, where there was a lot of change going on. There was the civil rights movement, there was the Black Panther movement, there was the women's lib movement. There were all these movements going on that made it acceptable for athletes to do that. And Ali's passing has inspired more athletes to really consider what it is they're doing with their platform. And it's sad that it took Ali doing it for it to happen, but it's beautiful that it is happening, and we can't ignore that.
I think that people like Michael Jordan are under heavy scrutiny. And, a lot can be said about him. A lot can be said about, Oprah Winfrey too. You know what I mean? It's like how much one of the richest women. I think she's the richest woman in America. Still, what has she said? What has she done?
You get a car, you get a car, you get a car. That's what she said.
Yeah, these are a few of my favorites. But I think that these people are under. I was watching I don't know if y'all know who Dr. Umar is, but he said something that was kind of profound too. He was saying like how there are a lot of people who will do more, but he was like they are so heavily watched because they have such influence. And he was like, I guarantee Oprah's phone is tapped, like Diddy, he was just going down the line, saying these things because, and I think that there's a lot of scrutiny because of who they are. I'm not making any excuses for anyone,
And
but
Diddy can't come out and say shit about the black community because he basically is the reason that, in my opinion, some of Biggie and Tupac, obviously all of that shit. And I don't care what anybody tells me. He helped create all of that shit.
So, as far as perpetuating the conflict and whether, if not denouncing it, playing into it. So yeah, I agree with that completely. He let it go on.
Right.
Well, my thing is this. I think that we have to be responsible. Even as a musician, as a songwriter, one thing that whether I'm writing for myself or for someone else, I never wanted to perpetuate stereotypes or glorify the wrong things, because when you do that, people that hear it, they begin to place such a high value on things that are very, very things that don't have much importance, that are pretty, I guess, consequential. Things that don't matter. And I think that all of us must hold ourselves accountable and responsible. And Pete, you said something earlier about you don't think it's going to change. Well, a lot of things did change in the 60s because conditions were so harsh and they were so severe that people began to see, hey, this isn't just a black problem, this is an American problem. And people started to come together because a lot of non-blacks gave their lives as well for it during the civil rights movement.
Right.
And I think we as a people have to become so disgusted, so sick, and so tired of what is going on, and get out of our bubble and get out of the social media and stop allowing propaganda. I have this saying, I always say the internet is evil. That's because it gave everybody a voice. So as much, and we all know that bad news travels way faster than good news does, but it also allows people to perpetuate things that are not factual. And people think, oh, I saw it on the internet, it must be fact. No. Go and investigate that. Go whatever. We need to get back to encyclopedias.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We need to get back to actual truths and actual knowledge, because like I said, everybody has an opinion that they can instantaneously put in the atmosphere, put in the world, and it can be viewed by people.
And at the same time, we have to make distinctions between facts and opinions. Like the fact that we have the internet, I never say the internet is evil. I would say that the internet is just like anything. It's a tool. You're right. It does allow people to post their opinion instantaneously. It allows
you to educate yourself.
Yeah, it allows people to state things that are untrue, but at the same time, it's at our fingertips that we can fact check and call people on their BS. We can go in and look up information, and we have to be diligent into our sources of information. Because obviously, if somebody posts on Instagram or on Facebook, hey, such and such celebrity died today, I'm going to go look at CNN or The Guardian or, Reuters or a respectable source before I go ahead and embrace that. And we as a people have to do that. The internet, at the same time, where it can be, people can use it for, misinformation or false information. At the same time, it's a great source to information, because on the one hand, everyone has a voice, but on the other hand, everyone does have a voice. You can be heard.
I say all that to say, go ahead.
I said, I think the internet actually is a useful. It can be used for evil, but I find the internet to be more helpful than actual TV. I think TV is very TV. See, television.
It's one-sided.
Yeah, television. Exactly. Television for years has given us one view, one side.
Subliminally
they never really get to, like, if you ever notice the news, and I notice the news here in Chicago, right? We get a lot of shootings in Chicago, right? But I notice it's on every newscast. If you watch the news in Chicago enough, and if anybody has like if you just listen to the Chicago radio, they'll always give you the shootings in the black neighborhoods first. And then they'll give you like a white guy who robbed like 12 gas stations in between the food and right before the weather. Something that you'll totally miss.
Right.
Bob went crazy today, and he robbed the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
it's in between everything that you missed it, but it gives everybody, and it gives the world a bad view to think that every black person is always violent.
Yeah.
You know,
News-
Well, I mean, I think TV perpetuates a lot of things, but when I say the internet is evil, hear what I'm saying. I'm referring to things like so many things get lost in translation, like even the way we communicate with people. Like,
But emails can do that too, though, because
Right.
I can email my own job between 13 people, and somebody got pissed off and about something, and it's like, how the hell did you get out of that email? I read the same email.
exactly. And I mean,
like,
you can argue.
But that's not evil.
But that's your education level to interpret how situations are.
I don't want to
That's
get
your
on
life
the internet tangent like that, but my point was that a lot of negativity comes from is my point. But I think that we must get to true knowledge and do the research, what you said, Mike, and read books and not always text people because things get lost in translation. Call that person and talk to them because things don't go through like sarcasm or
Right.
And
I mean,
that's what I meant by
One
that's
thing
what I meant by that.
one
Let's
thing
get
I
on
want to add to,
tangent.
it's gonna be real quick.
yeah.
I think that, I think a lot of stuff that changed, like from the 60s, if you really think about it, let's go back. Okay, blacks weren't allowed to ride the bus, right? When they had the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, that changed things for blacks and whites marched and stood up for that. Stood against that. That's why we got the Civil Rights Act, because blacks and whites marched on Washington, D.C. Those things, honestly, peaceful protesting has gotten more done than voting. It's just what it's done. Because you got to look at it. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that. You got to look at it this way, right? America's very image conscious, first of all, to the outside countries. So if they get us coming together and start, not a rebellion, which is very temporary, but a revolution, everybody coming together and standing on the White House and speaking out against stuff, and not just for a short period of time, but stay on their backs about it, eventually other countries will see these things and say, well, they want to try to make relations with us, but they're obviously not relating with their own people. So we got to make some changes in-house first in order for us to even try to establish a relationship with people outside the country.
Exactly.
A lot of stuff can get done here, but like I say, it can't be done over a short period of time. Like this police brutality, we need every face. We need every Hispanic. We need every Latino. We need every white person, every black person. We need everybody to stand against it, and we gotta be consistent, because I see if you notice a lot of the movements that we have, like even with the Freddie Gray and Alton Sterling and Trayvon Martin, Philando Castillo, it all lasts for about a week or two. Yeah, it all lasts for a week or two. And after a while, it goes back to just, Black Lives Matter.
Right.
But,
and like you brought up perfect point earlier, Gonzo, with your story, because no offense to you at all, Gonzo, but the average American, what do they drive? Honda Accord, Honda Civic, something of that nature. Most people in this country, when they learn how to drive, how do they learn how to drive? 10 and 2. You do everything perfect as you did, and it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It does not matter. And what we need to get to is more of a overall platform. If you're white and you get in an escalated situation and it's police related, that shit needs to be on film just as much as if a black situation was on film, so that way it can show an overall consistency of, okay, law enforcement's got to change. Because basically, the way I look at it, if Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are looking at it and they're looking at, this poor black person got shot in the car, oh boy, Well, I guess we need to do something. I guess we need to get on the TV. But if you get more multiracial, dynamics into it, they have to look at it because it's coming from every angle. It's not just coming from a Black Lives Matter. Everybody speaks up.
I'm going to throw this out there.
But that's kind of the thing, Matt, is that that's kind of the thing, Pete, is that it's poor people, it's poorer people, it's the general public that are having these run-ins with the police. Matt and I discussed it a few weeks ago about the kid who he was stopped by the police. He was a white kid, stopped by the police, and the police officer got mad with him, tased him, dragged him out of the car, and you can see it on the dash cam footage, and he threw the kid on the sidewalk like he was nothing.
How much publicity did they get, though?
And that's the thing, though. And so we have.
That's what I'm saying. It didn't get. Do you see that hashtag on Twitter? No.
No.
Do you see that on CNN? No.
And it goes both ways because the media, and as a communications major, I see this a lot in the media. They do what is going to generate the attention. They know.
Correct. They want to generate chaos so it keeps ratings at it.
Exactly.
At a high.
Generate revenue.
But go ahead, man. You were going to say something.
Did you guys last week see the video of the African American second grade teacher in Austin? And look, she got slammed by the cops, and I don't even. That's horrible. But it's when she's in the back of the squad car is the most revealing. She's asking the officer, "Why are you treating black people like this?" And essentially, his response, basically word for word, he said, "You have violent tendencies." He said, "I'm a good black person. Why are you treating me like this? I don't have violent tendencies. Black people are scary. I understand why white people have these biases, and they have every right to." That right there tells you the mentality that people are going into. And a lot of that, Byron was telling me this the other day. We talked a couple weeks ago. Look at how African Americans are portrayed on TV in our TV shows. You got shows like, what is it, Empire, Power.
I was just about to say.
Always negativity. And I go back and I always use this video, and it went viral. Byron and Mike know about this. Remember when the Concords came out? Fox, the local Fox station. You guys remember the Get Money Boys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have. So there were thousands of people they could have interviewed in that line. They choose the most. They probably interviewed 6 or 7 people, the most ignorant people you could find.
Yep.
Just more negative portrayal.
And if you live in Salt Lake City and the only black people you know of play for the Utah Jazz, and you see that video, you begin to think that's what, like what Jesse Williams said, when you're not exposed to them and you see what's portrayed, you think that's what it's all about. Like, oh, that's how they are. And similar to, it's the same thing. Like I said, like I don't watch Empire. I watched maybe a little bit of it, like the first season, and then I was like, then I really came to realize like how high drama it was.
That's even a biased show in itself because we all know Lee Daniels is gay as a black, male.
Right.
You got to bring the dynamic of Jesse Smollett being gay. He was quietly gay behind the scenes. Not many people knew that he was gay. Here you go, bringing a whole dynamic of oh, well, he's gay. Let's bring the storyline out. Now you got Jesse Smollett. Oh, I want to be back in privacy. This is too much. And da-da-da-da. You're the one that brought it out. You let Lee Daniels bring that storyline out. Don't sit there and act like now all of a sudden you're offended because people ask, well, how long have you known you're gay and all this stuff? You knew that shit was coming when you brought the storyline out. Same with Taraji. I can't. Yeah, Henson. Her son basically got pulled over. Perfect example. Her son made up all that bullshit to get himself out of trouble about how he got harassed and everything else. Then when it really came out, it turned out that he was the one causing. Made up the whole story. Was basically belligerent to the police officer, things like that. But she got on the main stage and started the whole, well, Black Lives Have to Matter, and all stuff. You just made yourself look so stupid in a platform, and I didn't agree with it because it's like you have the voice to change many, and you chose to speak up without knowing the facts, trying to defend your son instead of looking at your son shouldn't have been in trouble in the first place, then lie his way out of it. So
back to these TV shows, it's like Here's the harsh reality of it, you know, and I've heard other people say that. My mom and I have had these discussions, and I think if Q were on, he would probably agree. It's like I have like ABC has two shows that I will never watch, and one is called Blackish, and the other is called Fresh Off the Boat. Now, I mean, and if as a minority in America, I look at that as like, okay, so if you give the Mexicans a show, what is it going to be? The wetbacks? You know what I'm saying? It's like, why must I be in a program? Why must I be on a show as an actor? I also act. If you can't tell these impressions I do, anyways. Why would I belittle myself, and why do the roles have to be so self-degrading that I have to be on a show called
No,
Blackish?
in one sense of that though, Dave Chappelle of all people made fun of every single race. Look at the skit with him as the milkman. Look at
The racial draft.
The racial draft. Look at what was the first Clayton Bigsby. Yeah. Look at that brings humor to all different people, and actually in reality can bring people closer together because you can laugh at each other. Now, when you're profiled by ABC, looking at it as individual, like you're saying, Byron, that all comes from the execs based on their in a sense getting people in test. I can't think what you would probably know it, like basically like a test phase where they have all different people sit in a room and you basically test the pilots, things like that. So that's where they can make change, but they're not going to because
But also, it's important to mention that in the case of Fresh Off the Boat, it's based off the life of Eddie Wang, and the book is of the same title.
Right.
The book is of the title because it's about his parents, how they came to America from Taiwan, and how they achieved the American dream, and how he grew up in the suburbs of Orlando.
I know the story. But he actually isn't hands-on with the show. Like, let me finish saying what I was saying. Let me get to my point. It's like, my thing is, why are the titles within themselves so self-degrading? But but the other shows, they're not like that. You don't have a show called the Caucasians, or you know what I'm saying? It's like the roles are so self-degrading. You don't have that. What happened? What about Bill Cosby before he was, the old Bill Cosby? He had the Cosby Show, which was black people portrayed in a positive light. You had the dad who's a doctor, the mom who's a lawyer. They're successful. They got kids. They live in a very good part of Brooklyn, New York. And then you have the spin-off show of that, which is A Different World, which is about a fictitious, fictional.
You had a lot of shows.
Historical black college in a different world, and at that time, that show was so popular. The numbers of blacks going to college increased, astronomically because of those shows. They were positive. They weren't like self-degrading. And another one is Empire. Not Empire. Scandal. I want What's in a Name, huh? I'm not gonna watch a show where you got a prominent, black woman, but she's a whore, and sexing her way up through the political. I just refuse to watch, these roles, and they are degrading roles, and that's just going back to what Matt was saying about the perception of people, of color in this country. And then if I'm a young Mexican man, I'm looking like, where is my representation?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
At the end of the day, though, you can look at Scandal. The prominent audience for Scandal is African American. So you have the right to not watch that show. You have the right to not watch Power, which is one of my favorite shows. But when it comes to like Narcos, for example, on Netflix, mostly Spanish.
It's set in Colombia.
Right. So you can look at it, but at the end of the day, it's Hollywood's agenda. First and foremost, it's what is going to bring them the ratings of popular shows. You're not going to see ever again. I guarantee you'll never see a show like Family Matters. You're never going to see a show like, like a Living Single or, a Martin. Like, those won't exist.
But you really was raised in the hood. That boy said,
Right.
living single. Boy,
Hey, the single was off the chain.
I mean, you can look at LL Cool J in the house. Successful black football player, sat there and helped raise, raise kids and stuff. Nobody knew about that show in white America, but it ended up being popular. And then guess what? It went on UPN, and who watched it the most? White people.
And that's the thing. That's what I was getting at. It's like, these are discussions that I've had. It's like people are so hungry for the American dream or to be successful, and because the roles for people of color are so limited, that they'll go do Blackish. They'll go be that Olivia whore from Scandal. You know what I'm saying? They'll go do Fresh Off the Boat, that is perpetuating stereotypes, and it's making a parody of your own culture, of your own people.
Well,
and
yes and no. I can speak to it because I watch both Blackish and Fresh Off the Boat from time to time. I was initially thrown off from watching Fresh Off the Boat until a friend of mine was like, no, it's based on a book, check it. And I watched Fresh Off the Boat, and for someone in our generation, I really connected with it because it shows it mostly from the child's point of view. I mean, this kid was in junior high at the same time we were in junior high. He went to a suburban junior high, but a lot of the stuff that he experiences are life lessons and life experiences, and even in Blackish it's like that. And so I do agree. The titles, they are jarring, they are divisive, they are a bit stereotypical. However, the shows, what you get out of them, they are kind of to some degree like the new age of the shows we watched in the 90s, like Step by Step and Family Matters, in that they are family shows and they have family values and they promote things within that. Like, honestly, it made me like Eddie Wayne, and I actually watched his other show on Vice where he goes around the world and interacts with different cultures and food, and it made me understand him more and actually relate to him more. It's like, this is a guy that I'm at the point where if I ever saw him, I was like, man, we got to hang out. Like, you love hip-hop, you love sneakers, you grew up in the same era as we did.
Right.
I mean, so it's one of those things where if you can get past, I agree, the names shouldn't have to be as jarring as that, or the opportunity shouldn't be as limiting as that. However, there's still good coming out of that because the people that watch those shows, they can look at it and see like, oh, wow, they want the American dream. Their father started a restaurant, and, they wanted the same things that all Americans want.
It was very stereotypical. His dad started Chinese buffet. Everybody, you know what I'm saying?
No, actually, no.
Right.
No, I got to stop you there because I've seen the show. He actually started a steakhouse, which is very unstereotypical. It's the true story. And obviously they have some Hollywood, take some, we'll say some liberties with the show, but overall, it's the true story in that he started a restaurant and it was a steakhouse. So no, it wasn't a typical Chinese buffet. And yet it's still, what's wrong with that? It's like, the American dream for everyone is to have a family, have a home of their own, be successful, and allow the next generation to continue in that path. We all have that dream, and it's like when we see each other as other Americans, as other people, we can get past all of the static that is like, oh, well, he's black, so I'm going to believe this stereotype, or, he's Hispanic, I'm going to believe that. When we start to think of it like that, that's when we can really make progress.
Here's the thing, ABC, I feel like ABC feels like the only way we'll market shows with minorities saying is by focusing on the fact that they're not black, just black-ish. Mm-hmm. Not been off the boat, fresh off the boat. Yeah. So now we'll make like, we'll kind of make it.
But here's the reality.
I refuse because I think that there's so many other things you can market stuff to people. There's so many other. You have to give the American public more credit than that. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. And my point is, I don't want to go off into Alex Wang or none of that, because not other people are as intelligent as you, and they're going to go dig up his history and see what else he has to offer, because the Vice show is probably better. I've watched those because but I don't watch Fresh Off the Boat. And I say all of this to say it goes all the way back to the depictions. And they call it a television program because it is programming you to think a certain way.
But this reflects larger society as a whole. Until we have more diversity in the structures of not only the justice system, but also in Hollywood, in entertainment, and media, there won't be more diversity on television. Because like you said, these executives believe, well, this is the only way we can market this, we can talk to this particular group, so that's what we're going to do it. Until they have people of color and they have diverse people in those positions, they can develop television shows that more accurately or are more inclusive of more people. You know.
But at the end of the day, if you look at ABC, ABC has not ever been a broadcast, basically a network that broadcasts many African American shows.
Yeah,
they put on
Family Matters and
Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Hanging with Mr. Cooper. That's like it.
And even with Uncle Buck, the remake with Mike Epps, the show was awful. Like you take Mike Epps off of Survivor's Remorse that was on, what's it come on, Stars, I think, and you pull him off of that show to put him in a lead role. That for me, if I was Mike Epps, I'd say fuck no, I'm not taking this role off a movie that was a fat white comedian in John Candy that basically you switch it to a black role to put me into something that you know is going to fail. If you're Mike Epps, you need to be more selective and put your foot down and pick different roles. If you know ABC
and it got canceled.
He needs a better agent.
Right. I mean, you had shows from the 90s. I mean, like you guys brought up, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, one of my favorite shows, from the 90s. Life lessons for, all kinds of people, predominantly African Americans, because you had, Omar Gooding was in it. You had Jamie Foxx, basically mid-90s, early 2000s. Then you had Steve Harvey show in the original. You had what else? Sister was on. Moesha. You could sit there. You can go the Wayans brothers. I can go on and on.
That boy said Moesha.
I mean, you can jump. Hey, you can jump through. Obviously, Byron, you touched on Different World and all. The important shows. Fresh Prince being one of the most iconic because it was on NBC. In prime time. Same with Family Matters, but at the end of the day, network TV overall sucks. 90% of it sucks. Yeah. White shows, black shows, it don't matter. You've got to go to
cable and premium networks.
Right, premium networks. You get a show like Power, you get Narcos, you get, Vice Principals, you get all those shows don't come on regular, broadcast TV.
Game of Thrones.
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And at the end of the day,
Breaking Bad.
there needs to be a change in the way Hollywood is looked at. But Hollywood has basically trended downward for the last 15, 16 years. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to change into a different direction because where the money is in Hollywood is, and I'm going to say it because I'm white, is rich white people in the hills of Beverly Hills, mm-hmm. and basically basically the San Bernardino, the Valley, things like that. That's where your money's hidden. Byron, you can say because you're in Los Angeles, basically that's the marketing studios. How many black-run studios can you say are high market? there? Probably not a lot, because
But not even black-run studios. How many studios have a diverse leadership structure?
correct, and that's kind of what I was trying to do.
Just with diversity of race, but what about women as well? The way
Right.
that women are portrayed in film.
Right, and same thing. You know, like it's a show called the Girlfriend Experience. It's based off a movie with well-known, you know, porn star or whatever. It came on, I think, Showtime or Cinemax, one of those.
Yeah.
She did an interview and basically said, well, you know, yeah, I did all these, you know, naked scenes because, you know, I'm a call girl, stuff like that. And they said, well, you know, how were the scenes? And she's like, well, you know, not that bad because I'm used to being in different roles where there's a, you know, a lot of female nudity. And they said, well, how do you feel about that? And she said, well, you know, I wish there were, you know, more dynamics where it was acceptable for male, you know, sexual scenes to be shown and all of that. And there's not an equality there because you don't see many scenes that, you know, produce male nudity, which I can give a fuck, but, you know, just to be equal equality,
Right.
You know, that it should be there. Same thing for lead roles with women. How many shows do you see have lead women in it? I can't really think of anything.
Yeah, I
Other
get
than
that.
Scandal, really.
And then when it goes
aren't
into
attractive as naked women are, so we're gonna see more.
that's dismissive because we have to realize we have to look at it from the standpoint of men are making these decisions in studios,
Right.
and a lot of times they're rich, powerful white men. They're
Right.
coming from their ideology, and then
That's why sarcasm coming through. That's
And
what I'm.
when it-
That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
You know,
and when it filters down,
it's no different than taking the demeaning roles like Olivia and Scandal and like, you know, and like Blackish. There is no difference. You're still degrading yourself for a check, and then now you are perpetuating that. Now you're telling girls who want to break in the industry, this is the only way I can get there. There's no difference. That's my point. You know what I mean?
but that's
The
but that's
initial-
also
initial
my
thing-
point as well. You have
The
to
initial
break down
thing
that
Matt
door.
said- hold on. The initial thing Matt said was, this is how we got on here. He said the roles. He said that he and I had a conversation of the roles that were played. You know, how blacks were portrayed in the roles like the shows like Empire, and how they're a detriment to all of society and how people are viewed. So it's like, you know what I mean? When you see people and you're not used to being around them, you're going by Scandal, you're going by Empire. You know what I mean? And that was his point of saying like the dehumanization.
That's why you notice that police officer, he said, violent tendencies, you're scary. Well, if you haven't been around in a predominantly African American community, what you see is on Power. What you see is on the news. What you see is on these shows where
That's
they're
exactly
portrayed as violent people.
That's what I was saying earlier. It's based on
But those things don't change until you have the power structure and leadership that reflects diversity. You're gonna get there and keep pumping out because it's just like this. If let's say the woman on Scandal, I forget her first name, but
Kerry Washington.
yeah, if Kara Washington doesn't take that role, someone else does. Until you have someone in the studio or in these networks that can develop TV shows that are more inclusive and are better representations of diversity, you're going to continue to have that of women, people of color.
I mean, same thing with Empire. Look at Taraji Henson. Oh, she was in jail for selling crack.
Exactly.
What example does that show?
Exactly. But yet, Breaking Bad is praised when Walter White is the drug dealing kingpin.
Right.
So
I didn't really care. The show was okay, but
we have a double standard, and
Right.
and it reflects.
I don't know about the Breaking Bad one because
because people was rooting for Walt.
Go back and watch The
Well,
Wire.
See, I gotta say real quick.
Watch The Wire. It was the same thing. Everybody was doing the same thing when The Wire was popping. Everybody was feeling the same way. You were rooting for the villain.
But I gotta say at the same time, you can look at with Breaking Bad, in basically Caucasian society, meth is the biggest drug of choice. That and cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And meth is people basically used to sit there stealing Sudafed, time after time after time, sit there and make meth out of. So you basically raise a show like Breaking Bad and say, oh, it's okay, let's root for this guy, let's root for Aaron Paul, to come through. Basically, let's get the meth epidemic up. Then you switch to nowadays, Narcos is about to be on its second season. Let's bring up the Colombian drug lords and cocaine and how strong it was. And it's making a comeback. It never really left Hollywood, but it's becoming more prominent again. And you get into the whole thing with Hollywood, and they're going to switch your basic, kind of subliminal thought process as you're watching these shows to start thinking about these things, to bring up these arguments, to bring up, equality issues, and bring up, drug wars and blacks against whites and stuff. And that's basically what it does. Look at the show that got canceled a few years ago, Southland on TNT. Look at Murder in the First on TNT. Basically, last season was all about, cop shooting, or school basically shooting, and then, a cop getting shot. Mm-hmm. And, it's all these things. They basically base it off of society, but they base it off of one point of view. And people aren't smart enough to realize is, I'm watching these shows, I can make up my own. No, I don't think that way. Yeah. Because I can have a conversation with my mom right now. And my mom can say, well, I look at it this way because I grew up in a different era. Or, okay, this is what I see with this situation. I say, no, Mom, I don't think that. She's not going to go, oh, you're wrong. She goes, well, that's just your generation of how you feel with this. This is the way I grew up with something. And my mom didn't grow up racist at all. She could have, growing up in the middle of Philadelphia with, one side, being predominantly African American, the other side being predominantly white. But she chose to be in all different, avenues of knowing all different people. And that's where I get it from. I was raised to like all different people regardless of race or whatever. Now, if I don't like you, I don't give a fuck if you're the white guy standing next to me. If you're a dick, I'm going to call you a dick. I don't care. At the end of the day, I'm not going to sit there. You're not going to sit there and call somebody the N-word, and I'm just going to say that's okay. I'm going to go, man, really? Like, really? So you're going to get us off shop because you decide to be ignorant.
I think that, what, Pete, like,
and it goes back to product of your environment. And
right. But you were exposed, too. You were exposed. All I'm really trying to do is just provoke some thoughts of and create a reality. You know what I mean? As far as what we can do, and I want to hear from Gons and from Matt a little bit, because I think that
let's hear them. Let's go into them because we've kind of dominated the conversation.
I'm only going to say a couple more things since we got a couple other topics to go over for our NBA fans in the chat room. But I was going to say I made this. I told you I go on different websites, post in the comments section. I don't do it as much anymore because I know the audience, they don't give a damn what I say. But Q mentioned it on the show we did about Alton Story. What about Chicago? All this crime. So I see this post, and I respond, and I tell them, well, what about, you had, an African American fraternity went through there in May and was marching and protesting the violence and stuff. So I mentioned that. So I said, so you failed to mention this because the media didn't tell you. Basically, it says, well, that's not good enough. They need to do this. It's like, well, didn't you just say they're doing nothing? It's like, well, when people do something, oh, it's not good enough. That doesn't count. So you see the mentality that we have to deal with. It's like, it's lose-lose.
Right.
Right. It's damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah.
And I think more people that are doing something in the grassroots needs to be highlighted, because we can't just look to celebrities like Oprah, Michael Jordan, Carmelo Anthony, and whatever as to what they're going to do. We have to look at people that are making a change every day in their community. Like, I went to a Black Lives Matter protest a few weeks ago, and it wasn't just black people. There were white people older than my parents walking around with Black Lives Matter T-shirts and shouting Black Lives Matter louder than anyone else. And it's because they understand the greater context. We have to highlight police officers like Tommy Norman, who's going out in the community and is is getting a lot of notoriety nationally from what he's been doing on the clock and off the clock within this community, making a difference within the lives of not only people of color, but people in general, bridging the gap between police and communities. We have to highlight the people that are on the ground every day, the people who have dedicated their life to social change and social justice, not just, the masses that when something happens, we get excited and we become a part of it. We got to be a part of this every day to some degree, to whatever degree we can.
The thing that frustrates me the most is the people that aren't for change that all of a sudden flip their side. Like Hillary Clinton, I'm sorry. She was not anything to do with the black community, nothing to do with gays, and all of a sudden you run a presidential race and it's like, oh golly gee, Bill, I think we need to write a little statement here so we can get people on our side.
Let me defend Trump real quick, something I never do. At least he's open with his bigotry and racism. We know how he feels. He's not hiding it. At least we know he's open about it. I would rather someone be open. Yeah, I'm a racist. I hate minorities. Be honest. At least be honest so I know where you stand. I'd rather don't lie about how you feel. I'd rather you be open about, I'm a racist motherfucker. So what?
But you know what? Can I say one thing? I think like when he made the statements that he made, towards Mexican Americans or immigrants or Mexicans,
Muslims.
I feel like I saw things happen in LA that were just that were just crazy, like how people start to come together. But the reason why I think America has to get back to this: don't see it as their problem, see it as our problem.
Exactly.
Because that's what I've been trying to get to this whole thing. It's like I'm just as outraged, but I feel like Latinos should be just as outraged when they see Philando Castile, when they see Alton Sterling, when they see Oscar Grant, and I think white folks should be as outraged too. We cannot see it as just that's their problem with their community.
But that's the thing, though.
Because if you do not, if your neighbor's house is being robbed and you turn your head, best believe that same robber is going to be kicking your door in and taking your TV and your Xbox out of there. When things are going on in your community, you must treat it and not to get super spiritual. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's like you must have that love and that, or you should. And maybe I'm wrong for thinking that people should think the way that I think, but I think that my personal belief is that an injustice to one is an injustice to us all. That's just like if somebody I don't like to see people get bullied or picked on anything. I feel like if somebody's getting bullied in front of me and I allow it and I can stop it, I am just guilty as the people that. Let me tell you something. Matt knows this. I had a personal trainer before I moved to LA, and he trained me, and I had put on a lot of weight, and he helped me get the weight off. I found out that the guy was a homosexual. I saw on YouTube where he had a video where he was working out, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, I know about your little secret and your little boyfriend and blah 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 blah." And he was going, and I was just like, and no matter I might not understand his lifestyle, but I'm like, you know what? I have enough righteousness and wisdom in me. I have enough to know that, hey, this is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to, on my clock, I'm not going to allow anybody to harass him or to put their hands on him because of his orientation.
Right.
That's not wrong. If you disagree with somebody, you don't, you know what I mean? You don't win them over with violence. And if you, or with insults and ridicule. But back to what my initial point is, if I allow that to happen on my clock, I'm just as guilty as the people that are doing that. In America, we must see things as not a white problem, not a black problem, not a brown problem, not a Asian problem. We got if they inhabit this land, we have to see it as our problem.
See, I think the solution is we got to understand where the true problem lies, right? Me personally, I think the true problem of this is the real problem to me. I think that the higher ups, when I say like people who really want to run the world, like government, uh, and I'm just talking about government across the world, the people who really control things. I think amongst them, it's kind of like it's classism. It's like they really don't care color because it's more or less about the money. You know, you could be a rich black guy, you're in the club. You could be a rich Hispanic guy, you're in the club.
You
I
broke?
think
Sit down.
I think that here in America, amongst the they say the poor, the middle class, I think that it's racism thrown in the mix amongst us, so we can always kind of look at each other and keep the turmoil
Exactly.
and chaos amongst each other, so the higher ups can continue to do what they want to do to us. They can continue to rob us. They continue to blindside us with these bullshit rules and regulations. Like
Cut jobs, send them overseas.
exactly, they doing all this stuff to send us off, and we end up blaming each other, thinking, "Oh yeah, the Hispanics are getting all the jobs, or
Uh-huh.
you know, all the black guys are getting the jobs." And the truth of the matter is, you guys are just throwing this ploy out here just to kind of give us spin, just so we
It's
blame
like-
each other,
Distraction.
distraction, so we won't see the real problem.
It's like, it's like what Byron has, Byron, you can comment on this. Mr. McGoy, remember what he said about the Jim Crow laws? They turned the poor blacks and the poor whites against each. See, at least we're not black.
Matt and I took a class community college together. I needed it before I transferred to the university. The history of Texas, and we had this guy, and we took it in where Matt lived in his predominantly white suburban area called Katy, and I drove out there and I took it there. And when I did that, it was just like, okay, I go to this class. I'm the only black guy in there. We got this professor, and my mentality already was like, he probably thinking like, yep, here come the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, my class. I'm coming here with my, but he taught this thing from such such an objective perspective. And one thing he said was post Civil War, he said you had these slaves who are now free. They have no job. They have no way to make money. And you have these whites that don't have anything, and they start coming together, and they were living amongst each other and everything. And all they saw was that they were both poor, and they related to each other. He said, but the powers that be said that if these people come together, they will sway the vote, and they will vote in reforms, and they will vote in policies that will benefit them and not us. So let's make them focus on their differences and not the similarities, and thus birthing this divide and conquer mentality and a sentiment within the people. So it's like, okay, we'll make it harder for the blacks to vote. We'll give them literacy tests, and we'll make them hard for and of course they're not educated. We'll make it super hard for them. Well, you got groups coming up that are trying to prohibit them from voting. So now, even though they're all poor, you have these poor whites that are saying, well, okay, we don't have to be just as broke as them, but at least we can vote. Well, look how hard it is for them. At least we're not black, And they focus on their differences and not the similarities. It's no different than what's going on in LA, where you have black gangs and Mexican gangs fighting each other in some parts, killing each other. They're enemies, as it's been explained to me, and it's like y'all are both broke as hell. Y'all are both, a lot of y'all are both ignorant as hell. Your parents really ain't that ignorant. Y'all out here thugging it. There's no opportunity. Why not come together and use your power and vote and make your community better? Vote for your local politicians and bring up, bring about change. So it's.
Anybody else got anything to add before we jump into?
I think we can talk NBA now.
Yeah, I guess we get to basketball. Anybody else want to add anything in?
I don't have any. I think I said just.
Okay. Well, jumping into basically the most prominent thing going on with the NBA right now, you got the 2016 Summer Olympics. Team USA, of course. I want to segue before we get into the actual Olympics. Everybody's so-called favorite video game series, NBA 2K, announced officially today that Team USA will be a part of the NBA 2K17 game for all platforms. So with that, they came out with a picture today of not only Ronnie 2K with Coach K. They came out with a first screenshot of the entire 2016 USA men's basketball team. Not only does this not give me that much confidence going forward, but their marketing's been a little bit slow, to say the least. But the picture came out, and it kind of shocked me a little bit, because the picture cuts out DeMar DeRozan, and it also cuts out Draymond Green. Two other things in that photo, and I want everybody to kind of look at the screenshot. Kyrie Irving's feet are lifted off the ground like he's Marty McFly in Back to the Future 2. And the other one is multiple players look like they're sinking in quicksand. If I'm 2K, and this is the first picture that I'm releasing as far as a marketing tool to put the Olympics, this would not be the first one. It saddens me to see that it's looking like, and I'm not going to jump to any conclusions, but it seems like their emphasis is going to be to market the Olympics with not only the current Dream Team, but the '92 Dream Team as well, including Charles Barkley. But they're focusing on the Olympics, and we haven't heard anything about improvement in gameplay and various other things.
And for all you Christian Laettner fans, he'll be on it too.
Yeah, Christian Laettner will be on there. Forget that Isaiah Thomas should have been on there, but instead, but that's another story. Anyway, with 2K, I think so many people use that as a platform, of so many different ethnic backgrounds to kind of use that as a way to come together. We kind of all came together through basketball, and I think video games, of course, is an expansion of that. So with kind of what the Olympics are striving for, I think 2K is good with the marketing there, but I think that some of the marketing is a little bit rushed, in the sense that it doesn't give me confidence with the pictures that have been released. But
just so people can get an idea of what you were talking about, I hope we can see, that everybody can see. I'm trying to zoom in where you can see Kyrie Irving.
Right.
Let me see where I can spot. You'll see him, and there he is.
his feet are like off the ground.
He's hovering, and then if you move over, you see my man's feet in quicksand there.
Right. And the biggest thing with it is the Olympics are a platform for everybody to come together. I live in Georgia. The most disgraceful thing that they could do is that they held, I believe it was last night, or it might even be tonight. I didn't pay that much attention to it, but they're doing a remembrance on the 1996 Olympics. And I'm like, how in the fuck can you look at the 96 Olympics as a positive when you had the Olympic bombings and everything else, but yet you want to look at it as this social, growth of America, and it did nothing like that. It basically caused panic among all nationalities, and it caused, panic because you had a bomber that decided to go nuts. So I look at it as, if you're going to look at the Olympics, look at the competitiveness of the sports, and look at the camaraderie of teammates. That's what you look at. You don't remember where the event was held, or, basically kind of looking at it from a marketing standpoint. You got to look at it from the social standpoint first and foremost, and how sports can bring that together.
Not to interrupt, but I think a lot of it has to do with, like you said, the marketing, because they just re-released a lot of the shoes from the summer of '96. Doing the Air Munch Up Tempos Olympics with Scottie Pippen. As someone who lived in Atlanta during the Summer Olympics, I can remember what it was like. I was actually at the Olympic Village at Centennial Park a few days before that bombing. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you what it was like before and what it was like afterwards. It was pretty crazy. But then it got back to normal relatively quick. It felt more normal after it happened, quicker than I anticipated. I was probably like 13, 14 at the time, and it was during the bombing happened during like a Stevie Wonder concert of all things.
Right.
And they never.
I wonder if Stevie saw that one coming.
Oh, that's fucked up. Nah, but I remember it going down and just. I think more so they want to commemorate that because that was the last Olympics on American soil, and also the shoes. You know, they want to sell the Air Munch Up Tempos.
Hey, they're going to retro those pennies that he wore in those Olympics. The Zoom Air, what were they called, Byron?
The Zoom Air the Zoom Air.
You know, the ones that had the 6 on the back.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. It's the Zoom Air. I can't remember the name, but yeah.
Well, you're looking that up. It's been announced that USA Basketball forced 2K to pull that photo down. So take what you will from that. But I don't know if it was an early photo or not. But it's just interesting. The whole thing around the Olympics is basically trying to reach a diverse market, from 2K standpoint. The bigger thing with the Olympics is it came out today that Coach K was very irate over yesterday's blowout win over Team China. They won 107-57, and basically you saw the showboating of a few of the lesser valued players on the team. DeMar DeRozan being one of them with a 360 dunk that would have been up there as one of the highlight dunks in Olympic history, but it wouldn't have outbeat Vince Carter over Frederick Weiss from years ago. But the bigger thing for that I look for with Team USA is you look at guys like DeMarcus Cousins in a winning environment. You look at a Carmelo Anthony being able to gel, seeing what he can do with good teammates. You look at a Jimmy Butler, how he might be able to coexist kind of as a leader on a team. So those are the things I look for. I don't look at the Kevin Durant, man, he plays with the Warriors, and he's got Klay Thompson with him, and that's what they're highlighting for. It's not, that's not the storyline. The storyline people want to see is in Rio, they want to see America dominate the competition and bring America together, through the avenue of sports. And kind of going back to what you said, Mike, looking at the 96 Olympics, yes, it was a event that basically, Atlanta was different before and Atlanta was different after. But it's almost like, in a sense, by 1998, it was like, wow, what happened? Like, people didn't even know what happened, in a sense, if you didn't live here. And it's like, how in the world does something that crucial, around the world people don't really know what happened or know the facts behind it. So it's just interesting what the Olympics are going to bring, from all avenues.
Speaking of 96, I don't know if you guys heard what Charles said. Charles was on the 92 team, we all know. Said the chemistry was there, everybody got along. The roles were defined by Chuck Daly. But in 96, he said there were problems on that team. Guys thought they should be starting, more playing time. So I'm always curious, you wonder who he's talking about, because there were members of the 92 team on that team as well. And I'm assuming he wasn't talking about those guys. You had Grant Hill, Mitch Richmond, Penny Hardaway. Are these the guys he's talking about that were complaining?
He's probably talking about Mitch Richmond being one of them, because Richmond basically thought because he had such a stellar season that basically he should have been valued more, but because he was in Sacramento, he wasn't looked at as a leader in the NBA because of the franchise he was with. You could say that about Penny because, there was a lot of animosity there when he was with the Magic and Shaquille O'Neal and thinking he should have been the leader of the team. So that could be.
People forget that Penny found out Shaq had did the sign and trade at the
Sitting at the press conference.
Yeah.
And the big thing with that, shout out to if everybody has Netflix, go watch This Magic Moment. It's the 30 and 30 about the Orlando Magic and
Man, that was
kind of
fantastic.
how the Shaquille O'Neal, Anthony Hardaway thing kind of broke down and the what if. And basically, if you look at it with Shaq, how many titles would him and Penny have won rather than him and Kobe? I mean, it's a good thing to throw out if Shaq would have stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And Shaq admitted if he could do it all over again, he would have stayed. And it's interesting whether he's just thrown out there as a fluff piece or it's reality. But we'll see. But Shaq also caught controversy.
You know what was crazy about that thing though was how he first really met Penny on the set of that movie Blue Chips, and they were playing real basketball on the set.
Right.
And he was telling the manager, "You got to draft this guy."
Right.
I never knew that.
Right. Yeah. Basically, they were all set on. Well, let me back up real quick. Donnie Nelson really wanted to have the chance at getting a Sean Bradley or getting taking Chris Webber. Those were the two guys that he looked at. So basically, until Shaq came in and I can't remember the owner at the time for the Magic. I think his last name's Williams, if I'm not mistaken. Pat Williams, maybe.
Yeah. He was the GM.
GM. Yeah, he was basically kind of the decision maker there. He said, "I think we're set on Webber," and then Don Nelson stepped in and said, "Okay, basically this is kind of who I'm taking." Shaquille O'Neal stepped in and said, "Wow, I think you really need to look at this guy, Penny Hardaway." So basically, Pat Williams looked at it as, "Okay, I think we're going to go with this guy, but the opportunity to have Webber is something that we can't pass up." So looking at it in hindsight, if Shaq wouldn't have spoke up, there would have been Shaq and Chris Webber rather than Penny Hardaway. And just the things that the Magic were able to do after one season of having Hardaway and Shaq together, I mean, that duo, people thought back then, even me being a kid, it was like, damn, this team's actually pretty exciting. You got Byron Scott, skinny version, basically hitting from three. Nick Anderson basically able to shoot, kind of do it all. And the Magic were one of the best up-and-coming teams. I mean, hell, they made it to the NBA Finals. Now they got swept, but
by the Rockets.
Yes, by the Rockets.
I think an argument could be made. I know it's hindsight. Byron will hate this, and I think it's a legitimate argument though. If Nick Anderson makes those free throws,
exactly.
I'm not going to say Orlando wins, but
it could have changed the series.
It could have changed the entire.
And if
series.
Draymond doesn't get kicked out, I don't want to hear that.
You see, anytime you say anything,
if John Paxson doesn't hit that shot, I mean,
yeah, John Paxson could have lost.
I got to stop you there, B, because you said often if John Stockton doesn't hit that three in Game 6 against the Rockets, we get Bulls and Rockets in '97. So
Byron's only going to play hypothetical. He plays hypotheticals if it's a team he likes. If he hates I don't want to hear that.
Well, here's what I will say about that Orlando Magic team. Excellent documentary. I want to tie it into, because Jerry West did that 20 years later again with Durant. Shaquille O'Neal said that he regretted leaving the Magic. That's one of the biggest regrets of his career. And I think that Kevin Durant will grow to regret leaving.
No way. The reason I say that is
what's funny? In the Magic moment, they mentioned that. They said, look at Orlando in '96 and look at Oklahoma today with 2 top 5 guys on the team and losing one of them and affecting that franchise forever. Orlando has still not recovered from losing Shaq in '96.
Mm-hmm. No.
Even when they had Howard, they still were not at the level they were when they had
Shaq.
I think the argument can be made, and maybe this is just playing devil's advocate, just to give an opposite view. Orlando kind of reached a higher level because at least they won a game in the finals with Howard.
True.
Right. And you look at the stopgate teams too, though. You had Tracy McGrady, You had Grant Hill. Now, granted, Grant Hill was injured, but you could have. Think about it. You could all go hypothetical all day long. If you would have gotten Tim Duncan,
if you got Tim Duncan, that changes everything.
Right.
That franchise never recovered from losing Shaq.
Never.
No, I think the bigger, and I don't think the franchise is going to be, if they're going to have more for Oklahoma City, it's going to have more of a negative effect if Westbrook leaves than Kevin Durant. The reason I say that is because Westbrook took more of the alpha dog role than Kevin Durant ever was willing to.
Mm-hmm. So, hey, real quick, shoot, now I just lost my train of thought.
That's all right. That's all right.
I was going to bring up one of our topics in a second.
Well, I was going to say Dion Waiters. We can segue real quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Dion Waiters basically had the option sitting there, $6.something million to go back to Oklahoma City. It was on the table until they brought over their draft stash from 2 years ago, Alex Abrinas. Basically, then his offer got rescinded. So basically, Dion Waiters tried to roll with his ego after all the money dried up. You know, Philly had every opportunity to be able to sign him. So did Brooklyn. They took a pass because of character issues. He signs to Miami, 2-year deal with the second-year player or team option, and the first year being $2.9 million. So think about that when you're Dion Waiters and you're looking with Miami, and you're looking down the bench, and Wayne Ellington's making more than you're making, that's got to be a humbling experience. Now, there's two versions of Dion Waiters. There's the early playoff edition of Dion Waiters, where he basically looked like he was, basically becoming a player and going to build, for free agency. And then there's the later version of the playoffs where he stunk it up. So if you put Dion Waiters, in my opinion, in a bench role, he is going to thrive like no tomorrow. If you put him in a starting role, that's too many minutes to see that stink it up Dion Waiters version. And basically it's gonna come out, and in all honesty, I like the Waiters fit in Miami because I think they need a scorer. But Matt, you and I kind of talked about it. I think Dragic is still going to be the number one option. And honestly, I think you're going to have to compete with Hassan Whiteside to be the second option. Because I think Whiteside, they try to get more touches. And don't forget about Justice Winslow being there as an option there. If this is all predicated on if Chris Bosh doesn't come back, which that brings us to another topic later. But what do you guys feel about Dion Waiters?
I think he's good. I like it. It's almost like he's kind of betting on himself. Like if I go in there and I have a really good season, because he's obviously going to get more scoring opportunities there than he was going to have in Oklahoma City or even in Philadelphia. So it gives him an opportunity to be a legitimate second guy if Bosh doesn't play.
Right.
And even if Bosh does play, who knows how many games he's going to play. So Waiters can be a legitimate second number 2 guy and really shine. I know on some of the I've read some people say, well, he might. If you think he's going to go in there and average 20, it's not. I think he could go in there and average 18, 19 a game. And then with the money the way it is, if he goes in there, gets you 18 points, the 5 assists, 5 rebounds, plays good defense, he's looking at a max contract now. And he'll have an opportunity in Miami. And he's going to be with Pat Riley, so hopefully that'll help with the character issues. And he'll be with Spo.
It's a good move. I think he's going to be a role player again once Pat Riley rebuilds that team to his liking. But I think for now it's a good move.
Okay.
I agree too. I thought for Dion Waiters, it was a lot like Derrick Rose. He needed a change of scenery. Especially after Durant left. But I felt like it beforehand. I just felt like he never fit in with that team. And he just needed a fresh start. I think this will revitalize his career, change of scenery, and having a GM like Pat Riley will probably help develop him and put him in more areas for success versus like, hey, you're the third guy, do what you can.
Right.
Yeah, and Brendan Haywood said some very important things yesterday. He was saying about the good coaches, and they will define roles for these players. I think that's what Spo's going to be able to do, along with Pat Riley. Waiters is going to know his role. In Oklahoma City and in Cleveland, he never had a defined role.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think he'll get that now.
The only thing with Waiters being there, yes, Waiters is a young guy, but I don't like that. I do like it in the sense that it forces Tyler Johnson to basically take on more of the point guard role, which basically he can kind of push Goran Dragic out as the trade deadline kind of moves, closer. But Richardson, basically a two guard, it takes his minutes away, which basically forces kind of a little bit of a glut there, because you've got Ellington, you've got Richardson, you've got Johnson, you've got Waiters, all at that spot. And it's like, how do you find minutes? So to me, it kind of tells me almost like they don't really want Chris Bosh to come back. Health comes first. But is Miami, how they did Dwayne Wade, are they doing the same thing with Chris Bosh, or is it just me reading kind of into it?
I think Chris Bosh's situation is a little bit different than Wade, because people forget Wade took less money for 4 or 5 years straight. Like, he took less money for them to get LeBron and Bosh originally, and then when LeBron left, he took less money for them to re-sign Bosh, thinking he was going to get taken care of, the following summer. And I think at the end, he just felt taken for granted in everything he's done for Miami, but also taking the pay cut for so many years. And then seeing Kobe go out the way he did, and seeing, like, I'm not trying to get 30 a year, but you guys won't even give me 20 a year. And I think that made the decision easier for him. Now, to Bosh, I think Bosh is kind of like deja vu for them, because they went through this with Alonzo Mourning with his issues.
Right.
And I think health is number one. I think if Bosh can't play, he shouldn't play anymore. But I also feel like I don't think they want to get rid of Bosh, but if he doesn't play again, it would be in their best interest, because they won't have to make that decision of him signing a waiver saying, I do not hold the team liable if I have complications like Alonzo Mourning had to do before he came back. I don't think they want to be in that position again. I think they want, Chris Bosh to live an okay life and be able to be healthy after basketball and not put himself in a life-threatening position, which is legit.
And it's similar to what Chicago did with Eddie Curry. They basically, Curry had started up and coming, and basically they forced him to, kind of take that genetic testing, for his heart, and he wouldn't do it. So they traded him to New York, and it set the question kind of early on. It's like, why would you not want to take care of your health first? If you want to make that much money, just take the test. Make sure your heart's okay. And, so Chicago was kind of in the right place there. Yeah. Curry just wanted to do what he wanted to do. With Bosh, I think, he's being a little selfish on his side, because you're risking your health. You don't need the money. You've made so much money in multiple contracts. Take it easy. Like, if you got to step away, I know it's hard, but don't you want to live? But on Miami's side, a lot of people are looking at it, and I'm playing devil's advocate for a reason, because on the Miami side, you have to look at it as, are they forcing him because they don't want to, pay him, but they're trying to do it graciously behind the scenes, but at the same time, Bosh is throwing him under the bus. So, what's the dynamic there overall? And, it's a question that's going to have to be answered pretty quick, because Miami's either going to be a contender or not be a contender. And,
they're not going to be a contender this year.
With Bosh there, they have a better chance. They could be fifth or sixth seed in the East potentially. Right. Without Bosh, they're out of the playoffs. I mean, that's easy answer. And kind of at the end of the day, you got to look at all the way around. Like, if you want to be the most marketable star, if you're Bosh, now's your chance. The other two are gone, and I think that's kind of where Bosch is looking at, like, okay, I get a chance to lead the team again like I did in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And Miami's side of it is, well, we ain't doing that because if you have a heart attack on the court or you die, we're responsible and we'll never come back from that. So that's two sides, that basically, fans kind of have to look at. And I'm hoping, there's going to be a resolution to that soon. But we'll see, kind of how that plays out.
I really hope there's a nice resolution on that because, I mean, he deserves to be able to end his career the way he wants.
Right.
However, his health is more important than that. And I kind of do sense that with Wade departing, it gives Miami the incentive to get younger. They re-sign Whiteside and a lot of these young guys so they can develop. So it could be a win-win. It could be a blessing in disguise, really.
Kind of what I want to segue, we're going to kind of cut because we kind of basically went a long time about some other social aspects of the topics, but we'll pick up another show this week and touch on some of the other topics we were going to touch on. But I kind of want to end it with kind of retirement talk. Amar'e Stoudemire came out and announced his retirement. He decided to pick the New York Knicks as a team he signed with for his retirement. We all know he played with the Phoenix Suns, won Rookie of the Year, the 2003 Rookie of the Year, and basically was a dominant force for the Phoenix Suns up until the 2010 season. And things kind of went sour with Phoenix. They wouldn't offer him the 5th year in his contract. He bounced, took the money from New York, had the very good opening season, and then all hell broke loose when Melo got traded to the Knicks.
Yeah.
Amar'e just, suffered some injuries, played second fiddle. Outside of his marketing aspect, I don't know why he did not pick, at least to sign, with Phoenix. And what I had to laugh at was so many fans on Twitter were like, "Oh man, Amar'e sucked with New York and all this stuff." I'm like, where's the other 8 years that he played where he was dominant and that offense was one of the most, dynamic in the NBA for all of those years? I mean, we all remember the dunk over Michael Olowokandi.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. The kid came out of high school and dominated from day one in the NBA. I mean, outside of even LeBron, you can say struggled early coming out of high school.
Yeah, a lot of people forget he was in the same draft with Yao Ming, and he dominated.
Right. And the thing that gets me is, for Amar'e to be so multicultural and just into different dynamics, I get why he picked New York, but you have that much of a bitter taste that you couldn't acknowledge Phoenix at all. It just, makes me wonder, what was the whole legacy in Phoenix about?
I mean, I think that was an odd choice for him to pick New York. I was really blown away at, when I saw that he retired, I was like, okay, I can see that. But then I was like, with the Knicks? I was like, why? I mean, maybe personally he had some better times in New York, but when you look at his career, in Phoenix, he dominated. In Phoenix, he was almost a perennial all-star when you take out the 2 seasons where, he was injured in Phoenix. One with the eye, and then I think another one, he had I think it was another eye. But I don't know why he picked New York. That's the oddest thing. That I will never be able to figure that out. He and Steve Nash, they should have been in the finals in 2007. I know Byron's not here, so we can't do the hypotheticals with him, but we all know about that controversial suspension following, Robert Ory's foul of Steve Nash. But that was a great team. And even they got Shaq for 2 years. They got rid of Shaq, and then they went to the conference finals against the Lakers in, I believe it was 2010. And they looked like a team poised for the future, and then he left. And that basically ended that chapter in Phoenix Suns history. So I don't know what really happened to make him leave Phoenix. I know Steve Kerr was the GM at the time. Maybe he got lowballed on the money, or maybe he felt
Well, he got lowballed on the years, and the other part of it was, we all remember he had it was the microfracture surgery in '05.
Yeah.
And, everybody has difficulty, especially big men, with microfracture because it takes away your speed, athleticism. But basically, what happened, we all remember at the '09 draft. Basically, the offer was on the table for the Warriors' 7th pick, which was ultimately Steph Curry. Phoenix wanted Curry, and they offered up Amar'e Stoudemire in that trade. Well, Stoudemire got wind of it and used it as fuel for, that season, and, he was named an All-Star. Well, then you get to the negotiating table, and Sarver and Steve Sarver, which was the GM, which was the owner, and then GM was Steve Kerr at the time, brought up his, knee injuries and that 5th year kind of being a deterrent in negotiations. So basically, Amar'e said, "All right, well, I'm opting out of my contract, and I'm going to be an unrestricted free agent." Contract talks went on, and basically that 5th year escalated Amar'e's contract to $99.7 million. And so he took the money. Well, Amar'e took that money thinking that, well, right behind that, I've got, some other free agents. And, we all know LeBron, of course, could have came and at some point. So he was trying to think ahead. Okay, well, I'm the big first free agent to take this. Some other people will come later. And that kind of never materialized. Then you could make the trade for Carmelo Anthony, and Amar'e's like, well, wait, I dominated in this offense, and now you're going to take this away? What's going on here? So I think there was a little bit of bitterness there between them, but I think on Amar'e's side, the only conclusion I could come to is, him coming out, professing his Jewish heritage. Obviously, in New York, big Jewish population. His marketing with philanthropy, community assist awards, all of that stuff. His own clothing line, various things that he was able to market in New York in those 5 seasons that necessarily he may not have been able to market in Phoenix.
Right.
But what was funny most of all is he posts to his Twitter account a highlight reel of his years with the Knicks, and not once did he highlight anything, regarding Phoenix. And then a backlash of comments come out, and all of a sudden, boom, an hour and a half later, he pops up a video on Instagram that posts, kind of his entire career, a lot of Phoenix highlights. But he's still not acknowledged Phoenix. So there's got to be some stuff, behind the scenes, even more, animosity towards that franchise that we don't know about. But I will say that Amar'e and Steve Nash pick and roll, one of the deadliest I've ever seen.
Unstoppable.
And, basically was well before Golden State even decided to make it a thing. It was the Phoenix Suns, Mike D'Antoni, as much as we make fun of him on the show, brilliant offensive mind for the 7 seconds or less, offense. So, well, Mike, I think we're going to wrap it up. You got anything that you want to just highlight real quick, whether, sports or anything you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, there really isn't a whole lot going on right now that I want to highlight other than what we discussed tonight. Obviously, I'm interested in seeing what how the USA basketball team responds to Coach K's public and I'm sure private criticism over, the turnovers from the other night. I'm curious to see that. Also, I want to see, curious to see how bad it really is in Rio, not just for the Olympic athletes staying there, but also for the amount of sewage being drained out that the citizens have to live with. So I think that's going to be the biggest story to come out this summer is the impact or lack thereof of impact on society in Rio and how it affects athletes coming. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Okay. Gonzo, if you're still around, if you got anything you want to touch on real quick, pop in. I know you got some family, stuff you're dealing with, but just want to give a chance to highlight anything you want to highlight. So, well, it looks like Gonzo's predisposed, and I honestly I don't have much to bring up other than kind of what we talked about. We got some topics that we'll touch on probably Thursday of this week. Just kind of see what what the days look like. Could be Friday. I'm not quite sure, but we got some things we didn't touch on. Want to touch on Mo Harkless going back to Portland, kind of what the Western Conference is going to look like there. Want to touch on the NBA rule changes. Some of those we'll go into detail about. Tyronn Lue, basically the $35 million extension by the Cavaliers to remain the head coach. And most importantly, the thing that we didn't touch on is more details came out about Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, kind of the behind-the-scenes drama surrounding there. So we'll definitely get into that and more topics a little bit later this week. So just want to thank everybody for joining in. Sorry we went a little bit longer on a little bit of off-topic in the beginning of the show, but hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll see you a little bit later this week.